Admiral Zefrak stood before the massive holographic display in the command center of the Galactic Coalition's flagship. The blue-skinned Vorthak military leader had seen many species rise and fall across the galaxy, but none puzzled him more than the humans. Their small blue planet orbited an unremarkable yellow star in the outer rim territories, yet something about them made even the most powerful alien empires nervous. The Coalition had been watching Earth for over 2 centuries. What they discovered defied all conventional wisdom about civilizations. Most species that achieved spaceflight did so through careful planning, resource management, and gradual technological advancement. Humans were different. They seemed to thrive on chaos, conflict, and impossible odds. Captain Vex, a 4-armed Keltorian intelligence officer, approached with the latest reports. Her multiple hands gestured rapidly as she spoke, a sign of agitation among her people. "Admiral, the human expansion continues at an alarming rate. They've established colonies in 17 star systems in just 50 years. Most species take 3 times longer to achieve such spread." Zefrak's elongated skull tilted as he considered this information. What makes them so efficient? Superior technology? Larger population? Neither, sir. Their technology is actually quite primitive compared to ours. Their ships are crude, their weapons basic, and their life support systems barely adequate. Yet they succeed where others fail. Vex paused, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "It's their mentality that concerns our analysts." The Admiral gestured for her to continue. Around them, other Coalition officers from various species monitored their respective territories. The serpentine Nagas coiled around their control stations. The crystalline quartzoids hummed at frequencies that indicated deep thought, and the gaseous nebulons flickered with different colors as they processed data. Humans don't retreat when facing impossible odds, Vex explained. When their colony on Kepler 442b was attacked by the indigenous predators, instead of evacuating like any rational species would, they fought back. They studied the creatures, learned their weaknesses, and ultimately domesticated them. Now those same predators serve as their guard animals. Zefrak's 3-fingered hand tapped against his ceremonial armor. Interesting, but hardly threatening to an empire that spans thousands of worlds. There's more, sir. When the hegemony tried to establish a mining operation in the asteroid belt of the Sol system, humans didn't file diplomatic protests or request mediation through proper channels. They simply destroyed the mining platforms and left a message. This is human space. Leave or be removed. The hegemony, who had conquered 47 star systems, chose to leave rather than escalate. This gave Zefrak pause. The hegemony were known for their aggressive expansion tactics. For them to back down from a species barely capable of interstellar travel suggested something deeper was at play. "Show me their military capabilities," the Admiral commanded. The holographic display shifted to show Earth's orbital defenses. What Zefrak saw was both primitive and ingenious. Human space stations weren't the elegant, efficient structures favored by advanced civilizations. Instead, they looked like collections of scrap metal welded together with no regard for aesthetics. Yet the energy readings were impressive. "They retrofit everything," Vex continued. "That cargo hauler they captured from the Taraxian pirates? They turned it into a mobile fortress. The agricultural platform they built for food production? It doubles as a weapons manufacturing facility. Every human installation serves multiple purposes, most of which involve potential warfare." The display zoomed in on a human colony ship approaching a distant world. Unlike the sleek vessels of other species, it looked like a moving city, bristling with weapons, defensive systems, and what appeared to be mining equipment. "They don't just colonize planets," Vex observed. "They conquer them, not from other species but from the planets themselves. Hostile environments that would kill most life forms become human strongholds within decades. They terraform through sheer determination rather than advanced technology." Admiral Zefrak studied the data with growing unease. "What do our psychological profiles suggest about their behavior patterns?" "That's where it gets truly disturbing, sir. Humans seem to have 2 primary responses to conflict. They either form alliances with former enemies or they completely annihilate them. There's very little middle ground. They've turned 3 different pirate organizations into trading partners through a combination of superior tactics and what they call mutually beneficial arrangements." The Admiral's scaled skin shifted color slightly, a sign of stress among his people. "And the annihilation option?" "The black hole incident, sir. When the consortium tried to forcibly relocate a human research station, the humans didn't just resist. They somehow managed to weaponize the station's experimental engines and created an artificial singularity that consumed the entire consortium fleet. Then they sent a message to the consortium homeworld. We warned you. The consortium immediately ceased all operations in human space. Around the command center, other officers had stopped their work to listen. The story of human unpredictability had become something of a legend among coalition forces, though most treated it as an exaggeration. Sir, Vex continued, our xenopsychologists believe humans operate on what they call escalation dynamics. The more pressure applied to them, the more extreme their response becomes. It's not rational from our perspective, but it's incredibly effective as a deterrent. Zefrak turned away from the display to address his senior staff. Representatives from 12 different species looked back at him with various expressions of concern, curiosity, and skepticism. Recommendations? He asked. Commander Thos, a heavily armored Brutarian whose species prided itself on military might, spoke first. We have overwhelming superiority in numbers, technology, and firepower. If humans pose a threat, we should eliminate them before they develop further. Several officers nodded in agreement, but Vex raised one of her 4 hands. With respect, Commander, that's exactly the kind of thinking that led to the black hole incident. Humans don't respond to overwhelming force by surrendering. They respond by finding ways to make victory so costly that it becomes defeat. Then what do you suggest? Thos demanded. We follow the hegemony's example, Admiral Zefrak said quietly. We leave them alone. Completely alone. No contact, no provocation, no interference. We establish a buffer zone around human space and treat it as a quarantine area. The command center fell silent. The idea of the mighty galactic coalition avoiding a single species seemed absurd to many present. Sir, asked Captain Earl, an insectoid hive mind representative, surely you're not suggesting we fear these primitives? Admiral Zefrak's expression hardened. I'm suggesting we respect them. There's a difference. Our archives contain records of 17 different civilizations that underestimated seemingly primitive species. Those civilizations no longer exist. He turned back to the display showing Earth, that small blue world that somehow commanded respect across the galaxy through sheer audacity and refusal to yield. Issue the order to all coalition forces. Establish a 50-light-year exclusion zone around human space. No ships, no probes, no contact of any kind. And make sure every commander understands why. What reason should we give, sir? Vex asked. The truth. Humans are the one species in the galaxy that becomes more dangerous the more cornered they feel. Our sole command regarding them is simple. Never agitate the humans. 50 years passed since Admiral Zefrak issued the exclusion order. The human quarantine zone had become an accepted fact of galactic politics, marked clearly on all star charts with warnings in 47 different languages. Most coalition species viewed it as a curiosity, a reminder of their leader's overly cautious nature. Young officers often joked about the great human threat during training exercises. Captain Jorak was one such officer. The young Vorthak had never seen combat and viewed the older generation's warnings about humans as outdated paranoia. Fresh from the academy with top marks in tactical analysis, he commanded the exploration vessel Eternal Reach and had been tasked with mapping uncharted regions near the galactic rim. Sir, we're approaching the outer marker of the human exclusion zone, reported Lieutenant Kess, his Keltorian navigation officer. Her 4 hands worked efficiently across the control panels as she monitored their position. Jorak studied the holographic display with interest. The boundary was marked by automated warning beacons, ancient technology that broadcast the same message in multiple languages. This is human space. Unauthorized entry is prohibited by Coalition Directive 2387. Violators will face severe consequences. Severe consequences, Jorak repeated with amusement. From a species that hasn't even perfected faster-than-light travel. Their ships still use primitive fusion drives while we've mastered quantum tunneling. Captain, Lieutenant Kess said carefully. Admiral Zefrak's orders were very specific about maintaining distance from human territory. Admiral Zefrak is old and overly cautious, Jorak replied dismissively. Besides, we're not entering human space. We're conducting scientific surveys of the neutral zone between their territory and ours. Perfectly legal under coalition law. What Jorak didn't know was that the humans had been very busy during their 50 years of isolation. While the Coalition maintained their distance, human engineers, scientists, and explorers had been pushing the boundaries of their technology in ways that defied conventional understanding. On the human monitoring station Vigilance, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen watched the approaching Coalition vessel with growing concern. The station, hidden within the debris field of a destroyed moon, had been watching the galactic border for 3 decades. Its mission was simple: observe and report any Coalition activity near human space. "Ma'am, the alien ship is definitely heading into the buffer zone," reported Ensign Martinez from his sensor station. "Based on their trajectory, they're conducting some kind of systematic survey." Chen studied the tactical display. The Coalition ship was massive compared to human vessels, nearly 2 kilometers long and bristling with what their intelligence suggested were advanced weapons systems. By any rational measure, it outclassed anything in the human fleet. "Any sign they've detected us?" she asked. "Negative. We're still running silent in the debris field, but if they get much closer, their sensors might pick up our heat signature." Chen weighed her options. The standing orders were clear: avoid contact at all costs. But the Coalition ship was clearly probing human defenses, testing the boundaries that had kept the peace for half a century. If they reported back that the buffer zone was undefended, it might encourage more aggressive exploration. "Open a channel to Earth Command," she ordered. Priority 1. Within minutes, the quantum communicator connected her directly to Admiral Patricia Kowalski, the current head of Human Defense Command. The conversation was brief and decisive. "Maintain observation," Admiral Kowalski ordered. "Do not engage unless they enter human space proper, but prepare for worst-case scenarios." Back on the Eternal Reach, Captain Jorak continued his systematic survey of the buffer zone. His crew was mapping gravitational anomalies, cataloging asteroid compositions, and searching for signs of rare minerals. It was routine scientific work, exactly the kind of mission that had made the Coalition the dominant force in the galaxy. "Sir, I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from Grid 77 Alpha," reported his science officer. "A crystalline quartzoid whose harmonic frequencies indicated excitement. It appears to be artificial in nature." "Show me," Jorak commanded. The display revealed what looked like a standard debris field, the remains of an ancient moon destroyed by some cosmic collision. But hidden within the readings were subtle signs of organized structure, power generation, and controlled emissions. "It could be an abandoned outpost," the science officer suggested. "Perhaps from one of the extinct civilizations that used to inhabit this region." Jorak studied the data with growing interest. Discovery of ancient ruins could advance his career significantly. The Coalition's archaeological division paid handsomely for information about lost civilizations. "Set course for the debris field," he ordered. "We'll conduct a detailed scan." Lieutenant Kess looked uncomfortable. "Sir, that puts us very close to the human boundary. Perhaps we should report our findings and request a proper archaeological team." "We're still in the neutral zone," Jorak insisted, "and I won't let some junior officers from the archaeology division claim credit for my discovery." As the Eternal Reach approached the debris field, sensors throughout the hidden human station began registering the Coalition ship's presence. Chen watched the tactical display with growing tension. The alien vessel was heading directly toward their position. "They've definitely detected something," Martinez reported. "Their sensors are conducting active scans of our section of the debris field." "Time to human space boundary?" Chen asked. 14 hours at their current speed. "But Captain, if they find us, our stealth will be compromised. They'll know humans have been watching the border." Chen nodded grimly. The existence of border monitoring stations was one of humanity's most closely guarded secrets. If the Coalition discovered they'd been under surveillance for decades, it could destabilize the delicate peace that had protected Earth and its colonies. "Prepare for emergency protocols," she ordered. "If they detect us, we may need to ensure they don't report back to the Coalition." On the Coalition ship, Captain Jorak was becoming increasingly excited about his discovery. The energy readings were definitely artificial, and the patterns suggested advanced technology, possibly even more sophisticated than current Coalition standards. "Sir," his communications officer suddenly announced, "I'm receiving a transmission. It's on an ancient emergency frequency, but the signal is very weak. Can you enhance it?" "Working on it now." "Sir, it's coming from the debris field. The signal appears to be automated. possibly a distress beacon from survivors of whatever destroyed that moon. Jorak's ambition overrode his caution. Rescuing survivors of an ancient disaster would guarantee his promotion to admiral rank. The Coalition prided itself on humanitarian missions, and saving lives always resulted in significant recognition. Plot an intercept course, he commanded, and prepare boarding parties. We may have survivors to rescue. As the Eternal Reach altered course toward the hidden human station, Lieutenant Commander Chen faced a decision that would change the course of galactic history. The Coalition ship was now heading directly toward human space, its captain apparently believing he was on a rescue mission. "Ma'am," Martinez said quietly. "They're hailing the debris field. They think someone needs help." Chen closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of Admiral Zefrak's wisdom and Admiral Kowalski's trust. The humans had spent 50 years avoiding this exact situation, but now it was unavoidable. "Send a message to all human colonies," she ordered. Code 777, full alert status. Code 777 hadn't been used since the early days of human expansion. It meant one thing: first contact protocols were now active, and humanity was about to reveal just how much they had learned during their decades of isolation. "And Martinez," Chen added quietly, "start charging the main weapons. If they cross into human space, we follow our orders." "What orders are those, ma'am?" "To make sure the galaxy remembers why they decided to leave us alone in the first place." The Eternal Reach crossed into human space at exactly 0347 hours, Coalition Standard Time. Captain Jorak remained convinced he was conducting a humanitarian rescue mission, unaware that his single decision had just activated the largest military mobilization in human history. Within minutes of the border crossing, quantum communication relays throughout human space lit up with emergency transmissions. From the outer colonies to Earth itself, humanity's response was swift and coordinated, in ways that would have impressed even their harshest critics. On Luna Base, Admiral Patricia Kowalski stood in the war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of every human ship, station, and defensive platform in known space. The response to Code 777 had been immediate and overwhelming. "Status report," she demanded as her staff scrambled to provide real-time updates. "All colonies are reporting full compliance with emergency protocols," reported Captain Williams, her aide-de-camp. "Civilian populations have been moved to secure locations and all defensive platforms are online and armed. Fleet status: the Third Fleet has altered course from the Vega system and will reach the border in 18 hours. The Fifth Fleet is departing Earth orbit now, ETA 22 hours. Deep Space Patrol groups are converging on the incursion site." Admiral Kowalski studied the tactical display with the calm efficiency that had made her humanity's supreme military commander. Unlike the Coalition's bureaucratic command structure, human military decisions flowed quickly through a simplified chain of command designed for rapid response. "What about our special projects?" she asked quietly. Captain Williams glanced around the room before answering. "Project Cerberus is ready for deployment. Project Fenrir has been activated and is moving into position. The Ragnarok protocols are armed and awaiting your authorization." These were humanity's darkest secrets, weapons and technologies developed during 50 years of isolation, while the galaxy assumed they were primitive. The Coalition's dismissive attitude had been humanity's greatest advantage, allowing them to develop countermeasures without interference. Back in the debris field, Lieutenant Commander Chen watched the Coalition ship approach with professional calm. Her crew had trained for this moment their entire careers, but knowing the theory and facing the reality were very different things. "They're slowing down," Martinez reported. "It looks like they're preparing to dock with what they think is a derelict station." "Let them," Chen replied. "But the moment they attempt to board, we reveal ourselves. Remember, our goal is to make them understand that crossing into human space was a mistake, without starting a galactic war. And if they don't understand," Chen's expression hardened, "then we make sure they can't report back what they've learned." On the Eternal Reach, Captain Jorak was reviewing the boarding procedures with his security chief, Commander Voss, a massive Brutarian whose species prided itself on physical prowess. "The structure appears to be an ancient space station," Jorak explained. "Our scans suggest possible life signs, though they're very weak. We'll need to move quickly to save any survivors." Commander Voss studied the tactical display. Sir, something about this feels wrong. The energy readings are too organized for a derelict station. And why would there be survivors after what must have been centuries of damage? Don't be paranoid, Commander. Sometimes the universe provides opportunities for heroism. This could be one of those moments. What neither coalition officer realized was that their every move was being monitored not just by the hidden human station, but by a network of sensors, satellites, and automated systems that humanity had quietly deployed throughout the buffer zone over the past 5 decades. In a command bunker deep beneath the surface of Mars, Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored the situation through quantum-encrypted channels. As head of human intelligence operations, she had spent decades preparing for this exact scenario. Analysis? She asked her team of specialists. Single coalition vessel Eternal Reach Vorthak-class exploration ship, reported her aide. Captain appears to be young and inexperienced. Crew complement of 47. No significant weapons beyond standard defensive systems. Motivation? Best. Assessment is scientific curiosity, combined with personal ambition. He likely believes he's discovered ancient ruins and wants credit for the find. Dr. Vasquez nodded thoughtfully. So not a deliberate provocation, just poor judgment. That actually makes this more dangerous. If we respond too aggressively to an honest mistake, it could escalate beyond our control. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Kowalski. Recommendation is to proceed with Revelation Protocol. Let them discover who they're dealing with, then offer them a choice. Retreat quietly, or face the consequences. Agreed, Admiral Kowalski replied. Chen is authorized to reveal the station and make contact, but if they show any sign of hostility, she has full authority to respond as necessary. Back at the debris field, the Eternal Reach had moved to within 100 meters of the hidden human station. Captain Jorak was personally leading the boarding party, determined to be the first coalition officer to set foot on what he believed was an archaeological treasure. Extend the docking bridge, he ordered, and be ready for anything. We don't know what kind of atmosphere or gravity we'll find inside. As the coalition ship's docking bridge reached toward the disguised human station, Lieutenant Commander Chen made the decision that would change galactic history. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship's internal communication system. As of now, we are in active first contact with an alien species. Follow all protocols, remember your training. And remember that the entire human race is counting on us to handle this correctly. She turned to her tactical officer. Drop the camouflage. Let them see what they've really found. Throughout the hidden station, electromagnetic fields that had disguised its true nature suddenly deactivated. What the coalition crew had thought was ancient wreckage revealed itself to be a fully operational military installation bristling with weapons, sensors, and defensive systems. On the Eternal Reach, alarms began blaring throughout the ship as sensors registered the dramatic change. What had appeared to be a derelict ruin was now clearly an active, heavily armed space station. Captain, Lieutenant Kess called out in alarm. The station just decloaked. It's not ancient technology at all. Energy readings suggest it's more advanced than our own systems. Captain Jorak stared at the display in shock. The station was smaller than his ship, but clearly designed for combat. Weapon ports that had been hidden moments before now tracked his vessel with predatory precision. Who are they? He demanded. What species has this level of stealth technology? Before anyone could answer, the communications board lit up with an incoming transmission. The universal translator struggled with the language for a moment, before resolving into clear coalition standard. Coalition vessel Eternal Reach, this is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Force Monitoring Station Vigilance. You have entered human space without authorization. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The bridge fell silent. Every coalition officer stared at the communication panel in disbelief. Humans? Captain Jorak whispered. That's impossible. Our intelligence reports say they're barely capable of interstellar travel. Commander Voss, his security chief, was studying the tactical display with growing alarm. Sir, whatever they are, they've been watching us. This wasn't an accidental encounter. They knew we were coming. As if to emphasize this point, additional contacts began appearing on the Eternal Reach's sensors. ships that had been hidden in the asteroid field, weapon platforms that had been disguised as space debris, and communication relays that indicated a vast network of surveillance and defense. Impossible, Jorak breathed. The humans we know couldn't have built this. Lieutenant Commander Chen's voice came over the comm again, calm and professional. Captain Jorak, you now have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal from human space. This is your only warning. For the first time since leaving the Coalition Academy, Captain Jorak began to understand why Admiral Zefrak had been so insistent about avoiding human contact. The species they had dismissed as primitive had not been idle during their 50 years of isolation. Sir, Lieutenant Kess said urgently, we should withdraw. Whatever's happening here, we're clearly outmatched. But Jorak's ambition overrode his caution once again. We're still in a superior position. Our ship is larger and better armed. These humans are bluffing. He opened a channel to the human station. This is Captain Jorak of the Galactic Coalition. We are conducting a legal scientific survey of the neutral zone. Your weapons targeting my vessel constitutes an act of aggression against the Coalition. The response came not from Lieutenant Commander Chen, but from a new voice, older and carrying unmistakable authority. Captain Jorak, this is Admiral Patricia Kowalski, Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces. You are no longer in the neutral zone. You are in human space and you are not welcome here. You have 20 seconds to begin withdrawal, or we will demonstrate why the Coalition decided to leave us alone 50 years ago. Captain Jorak's decision to ignore Admiral Kowalski's warning proved to be the moment that changed everything. With 15 seconds remaining on the human ultimatum, he made the choice that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. All weapons, target the human station, he ordered. Prepare to fire. The response was immediate and devastating. Lieutenant Commander Chen didn't hesitate. All stations weapons free. Show them what human engineering can do. The monitoring station vigilance revealed its true nature in spectacular fashion. What had appeared to be a modest outpost was actually a weapons platform that had been disguised and waiting for 50 years. Particle beam cannons emerged from hidden ports. Missile launchers revealed themselves from within false asteroid shells, and the station's central core began charging what Coalition sensors recognized as a massive plasma cannon. But that was only the beginning. Throughout the debris field, dozens of hidden human ships decloaked simultaneously. They were unlike anything in the Coalition database, vessels that seemed to have been designed by engineers who cared nothing for traditional aesthetics and everything for efficiency. Each ship was a collection of weapons, armor, and engines welded together with ruthless practicality. Sir, Lieutenant Kess called out in alarm. I'm reading 47 human vessels all armed and targeting us. How is this possible? Captain Jorak stared at the tactical display in growing horror. The humans hadn't just been hiding a single monitoring station. They had been maintaining an entire fleet in the buffer zone, watching and waiting for exactly this situation. Their technology readings don't match our intelligence reports, reported the science officer, his crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. These ships are showing energy signatures comparable to our most advanced vessels. On the flagship of the newly arrived human fleet, Admiral Rebecca Torres watched the Coalition vessel with the cold professionalism of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. Her ship, the Retribution, was humanity's newest and most advanced warship, designed specifically to face Coalition technology. Status of the diplomatic situation? She asked her communications officer. Admiral Kowalski authorized full response protocols 30 seconds ago. The Coalition vessel has weapons trained on Vigilance Station and is refusing to withdraw. Admiral Torres nodded grimly. Then we follow the plan. Signal all ships. Operation Revelation is now active. Throughout human space, the response to the Coalition incursion continued to escalate. Ships that had been conducting routine patrols suddenly revealed weapon systems that intelligence analysts had assured Coalition leadership didn't exist. Mining platforms transformed into weapons factories. Agricultural stations began launching what appeared to be defensive drones, but moved with the precision of military hardware. Back on the Eternal Reach, Captain Jorak was beginning to realize the magnitude of his mistake. His ship's sensors were detecting energy signatures throughout the system that suggested massive industrial and military infrastructure. How many humans are there? He whispered. Commander Voss, studying the tactical displays, provided the answer. Sir, based on the infrastructure we're detecting, this isn't a small monitoring outpost. This appears to be a major military installation. The humans have been building a fortress on our border for decades. Before Jorak could respond, every communication system on his ship activated simultaneously. The transmission came from Admiral Kowalski herself, broadcast on all frequencies with crystal clarity. Captain Jorak, you now have a choice. You can order your weapons offline, withdraw to Coalition space, and report to your superiors that human space is defended and off-limits. Or you can attempt to engage our forces and discover why 47 different alien civilizations have decided that peaceful coexistence with humanity is preferable to the alternative. The bridge fell silent except for the ominous humming of the human weapons targeting their ship. Every Coalition officer could see the tactical situation clearly. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and apparently facing technology they hadn't known existed. Sir, Lieutenant Kess said quietly, perhaps we should consider withdrawal. This situation has clearly escalated beyond our mission parameters. But Captain Jorak's pride and ambition overrode his common sense once again. We represent the Galactic Coalition. We don't retreat from primitives no matter how many ships they have. He opened a channel to the human fleet. Admiral Kowalski, I am operating under Coalition authority in neutral space. Your threats constitute an act of war against the Coalition. Withdraw your forces or face the consequences. The response came not from Admiral Kowalski, but from a voice that spoke with the calm certainty of someone who had prepared for this exact conversation. Captain Jorak, this is Dr. Elena Vasquez, Director of Human Intelligence Operations. Before you make your final decision, you should understand exactly what you're facing. The main display on the Eternal Reach suddenly showed a series of star charts that made the Coalition crew gasp in amazement. The charts revealed the true extent of human expansion over the past 50 years. What you're seeing, Dr. Vasquez continued, is the actual scope of human civilization. While you believed we controlled a few dozen worlds, we have actually established presence in over 400 star systems. Our total population exceeds 80 billion individuals across 97 worlds and 312 space habitats. Captain Jorak stared at the display in disbelief. Impossible. Our intelligence reports show humans as a minor species with limited expansion capability. Your intelligence reports showed you exactly what we wanted you to see, Dr. Vasquez replied. For 50 years, we've been conducting what you might call the greatest deception in galactic history. While you watched our primitive ships struggle with basic interstellar travel, our real fleets were exploring, expanding, and preparing. The display shifted to show human technological achievements that the Coalition had never suspected. Ships capable of faster-than-light travel that exceeded Coalition specifications. Weapons systems that incorporated scientific principles the Coalition had only theorized about. Industrial complexes that rivaled the greatest manufacturing centers in Coalition space. We learned everything about your civilization during our 50 years of isolation, Dr. Vasquez continued. Your military capabilities, your political structure, your economic systems, your weaknesses. You, meanwhile, learned nothing about us except what we chose to reveal. Commander Voss leaned close to Captain Jorak. Sir, if this is accurate, then humans represent a major galactic power that's been operating in secret for half a century. We need to report this immediately. You won't be reporting anything, Admiral Torres interjected, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making life-and-death decisions. You have violated human space and threatened human personnel. Under our laws, your ship is subject to seizure, and your crew to interrogation. The tactical display updated to show human ships moving into attack formation around the Eternal Reach. Each vessel was smaller than the Coalition ship, but their coordinated movement suggested tactical doctrine and training that rivaled the Coalition's best military units. However, Admiral Torres continued, humanity believes in proportional response. You made a mistake, Captain Jorak. A serious mistake, but still a mistake. We're prepared to offer you a choice. Captain Jorak found his voice, though it came out smaller than he intended. What choice? You can surrender your ship and crew to human authority for processing and eventual return to Coalition space. Your vessel will be studied, your crew will be interrogated, and you will eventually be released with a message for your government. Or you can attempt to fight your way out of human space and discover why the Coalition decided 50 years ago that peaceful coexistence was preferable to conflict. Throughout the human fleet, weapon systems powered up to full combat readiness. The monitoring station vigilance revealed additional weapon platforms that had been hidden within the asteroid field. And from deeper in human space, additional ships continued to arrive, each one adding to the overwhelming display of force surrounding the single coalition vessel. "Sir," Lieutenant Kess whispered urgently, "our weapons are designed for exploration and defense against pirates. These humans have built their entire fleet for warfare. We can't win this engagement." Captain Jorak looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew, young officers who had trusted his judgment, experienced specialists who had followed his orders without question. For the first time since leaving the academy, he began to understand the weight of command decisions. "What are your terms for surrender?" he asked quietly. "Your crew will be treated according to galactic conventions for prisoners of war," Admiral Torres replied. "Your ship will be impounded but not destroyed. You will be held for a period not to exceed 1 standard year, while we determine appropriate diplomatic responses. And when you are eventually released, you will carry a message back to the coalition leadership." "What message?" Admiral Torres' voice carried a note of finality that made every coalition officer shiver. "That the 50 years of peace between our civilizations has ended. Not because humanity chose war, but because the coalition—" Captain Jorak's surrender came 37 minutes after entering human space. His decision to yield rather than fight would later be considered the last act of wisdom in what became known as the coalition's greatest strategic blunder. Unfortunately for galactic peace, not everyone in positions of power possessed Jorak's eventual good judgment. Admiral Zefrak received the news of the Eternal Reach's capture while reviewing fleet dispositions in his command center. The elderly Vorthak leader had spent the past 50 years hoping this day would never come, but he had also spent those same years preparing for it. "Explain the situation again," he commanded Captain Vex, whose forearms gestured frantically as she delivered the intelligence report. The Eternal Reach entered human space conducting what Captain Jorak believed was a rescue mission. The humans revealed a major military installation and fleet presence that our intelligence services had completely failed to detect. When Jorak refused to withdraw, they captured his ship without firing a shot. Admiral Zefrak studied the holographic display showing the border region where the incident had occurred. Casualties? None reported on either side. The humans appear to have used some form of electromagnetic pulse to disable the Eternal Reach's systems, then boarded and secured the vessel. And Jorak's crew? All 47 coalition personnel are reportedly alive and in human custody. The humans have indicated they will be treated according to galactic conventions, but they've also made it clear that this constitutes an act of war. Around the command center, representatives from various coalition species were monitoring the situation with growing alarm. The peaceful coexistence that had defined galactic politics for half a century was crumbling in real time. "What are the humans demanding?" Admiral Zefrak asked. Captain Vex consulted her datapad. "Complete withdrawal of all coalition forces from the buffer zone, formal recognition of expanded human territorial claims, and reparations for what they term 50 years of surveillance and espionage." The Admiral's scaled skin shifted color, indicating deep stress. "They know we've been watching them. Sir, it appears they've been watching us as well. Our intelligence division is reporting that multiple coalition installations near human space have detected unauthorized intrusions over the past decades. Technical equipment has been found that doesn't match any known coalition technology." Admiral Zefrak turned to address the assembled representatives. "I need to know the Coalition Council's response to these demands." The answer came from Chancellor Korex, a pompous hegemony official whose species had never forgotten their humiliation at human hands decades earlier. His scaled features showed clear contempt as he spoke. "The Coalition does not negotiate with primitives," he declared. "If humans want war, we'll give them war. Our combined fleets number in the thousands. Their entire civilization couldn't possibly field more than a few dozen ships." "Chancellor," Admiral Zefrak said carefully, "our intelligence about human capabilities has proven to be severely flawed. Perhaps we should consider diplomatic solutions before military ones." "Admiral," Korex replied with dismissive arrogance, "you've allowed fear of these primitives to cloud your judgment for 50 years. The Coalition represents over 2,000 star systems and 47 different species. We will not be intimidated by humans." Similar sentiments echoed throughout the command center as other species representatives voiced their support for military action. The Brutarians wanted to test their strength against human defenses. The Quartzoids calculated that overwhelming numerical superiority guaranteed victory. The Nagas saw an opportunity to expand their territory through conquest. Only Admiral Zefrak and a few older officers remembered the warnings from 50 years ago. The younger generation viewed human avoidance as unnecessary paranoia, rather than hard-learned wisdom. "Very well," Admiral Zefrak said finally. "I'll prepare battle plans for a rescue operation to retrieve the Eternal Reach and its crew." What he didn't tell the Council was that he was also preparing contingency plans for what he suspected would be the Coalition's first major military defeat in over a century. Meanwhile, in human space, preparations for the coming conflict were proceeding with the methodical efficiency that had characterized human expansion for 5 decades. Admiral Patricia Kowalski stood in the war room on Luna Base, surrounded by holographic displays showing the mobilization of humanity's true military capabilities. "Fleet status?" she inquired. "All reserve fleets have been activated," reported Captain Williams. "The 7th Fleet has completed deployment to the Proxima defense grid. The 9th Fleet is moving to secure the outer colonies. Home Fleet remains in Earth orbit as planned. Total ship count: 843 combat vessels ranging from corvettes to dreadnoughts plus support craft, all equipped with the latest defensive and offensive systems." Admiral Kowalski nodded with satisfaction. The Coalition believed humans possessed perhaps 24 primitive ships. They were about to discover that humanity had been building and hiding one of the largest space fleets in galactic history. What about the special projects? Project Cerberus has been deployed to the forward defense zones. All ships are equipped with the new shield generators and enhanced weaponry. Project Fenrir is standing by for deployment on your orders. Project Fenrir was humanity's deepest secret, a weapons system so devastating that its very existence was known only to a handful of individuals. It represented the culmination of 50 years of human engineering and scientific advancement, designed specifically to counter Coalition numerical superiority. "And Ragnarok?" Captain Williams hesitated. "All systems are active and ready for deployment. However, the Psychological Warfare Division recommends against early use. They believe conventional resistance will be more effective in the long term." Admiral Kowalski understood the reasoning. Ragnarok was designed to end the war quickly and decisively, but it would also reveal capabilities that might frighten other galactic civilizations into forming alliances against humanity. "Better to win through conventional means if possible." "Estimated Coalition response time?" she asked. "Intelligence suggests they'll mobilize within 72 hours. Their closest fleet concentration could reach our borders in approximately 1 week. However, they're likely to underestimate our capabilities and send a relatively small force initially." This played directly into human strategic planning. Military doctrine developed over 50 years of preparation called for allowing the Coalition to make the first major aggressive move, then responding with overwhelming force to demonstrate human capabilities without appearing to be the aggressor. Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the war room carrying classified reports from across human space. As Director of Intelligence Operations, she had been coordinating humanity's information warfare campaign for decades. "Coalition response?" Admiral Kowalski asked. "Exactly as predicted. They're treating this as a minor rebellion by primitives rather than first contact with a major galactic power. Intelligence intercepts suggest they're preparing a police action involving approximately 50 ships. 50 ships against our forward fleet of 200, Admiral Kowalski mused. They're going to be very surprised. There's more, Dr. Vasquez continued. Our deep cover operatives in Coalition space report significant political divisions about how to respond. The younger leadership wants immediate military action, but some older officials are urging caution. Any chance of a diplomatic solution? Minimal. Too many Coalition species see this as an opportunity to prove their dominance and expand their territory. They've convinced themselves that humans are bluffing about our capabilities. Admiral Kowalski studied the strategic displays showing Coalition fleet movements and human defensive positions. Everything was proceeding according to plans that had been decades in the making. Then we give them what they expect, she decided. Operation Revelation Phase 2 is authorized. Let them see our forward defenses. Let them think they understand our capabilities and let them commit to a course of action they can't retreat from. And if they escalate beyond our projections? Admiral Kowalski's expression hardened. Then we remind the galaxy why 47 different civilizations decided 50 years ago that peaceful coexistence with humanity was preferable to war. But this time we make sure the lesson is permanent. As human and coalition forces move toward their first direct military confrontation in half a century, both sides believed they understood their opponent's capabilities. Only one of them was correct, and the galaxy was about to discover which civilization had spent 50 years preparing more effectively for the war that Admiral Zefrak had hoped would never come. The countdown to galactic conflict had begun, and the coalition was about to learn why their sole command regarding humans had been never agitate them. The coalition's rescue fleet arrived at the human border exactly 1 week after Captain Jorak's capture. Admiral Thex, a decorated Brutarian commander, led 50 of the coalition's finest warships in what military planners had designated as Operation Swift Retrieval. The mission was simple: demonstrate overwhelming force, rescue coalition personnel, and establish that humans could not threaten coalition interests with impunity. Admiral Thex had built his reputation on quick, decisive victories against pirates and rebellious colonies. His approach to military problems was straightforward: apply superior firepower until resistance collapsed. He saw no reason why humans should be any different from the dozens of other species that had learned to respect coalition authority. Approaching human space boundary, reported his navigation officer, a precise quartzoid whose harmonic frequencies indicated confidence in their mission. Signal all ships, Admiral Thex commanded. Combat formation Beta 7. We go in fast and hard, demonstrate our superiority, and give these primitives a chance to surrender before we take what we came for. What Admiral Thex didn't know was that his fleet had been under human observation since leaving coalition space. Long-range sensors, hidden monitoring stations, and deep space reconnaissance probes had tracked every ship movement, analyzed every tactical formation, and reported all findings back to Human Defense Command. On the flagship Retribution, Admiral Rebecca Torres watched the approaching coalition fleet with the calm professionalism of someone who had spent decades preparing for this exact scenario. Coalition force composition? She asked her intelligence officer. 50 vessels as predicted, 12 heavy cruisers, 24 destroyers, 14 support craft. Standard coalition battle formation designed for overwhelming firepower against inferior opponents. Their assessment of our capabilities? Based on intercepted communications, they believe they're facing a force of perhaps 20 primitive human ships. They're expecting minimal resistance. Admiral Torres smiled grimly. Then we shouldn't disappoint them. Signal the forward fleet. Operation Revelation Phase 2 is active. Let them see exactly what they expect to see. Throughout the forward defense zone, human ships began implementing carefully rehearsed deception protocols. Advanced vessels powered down their primary systems to appear primitive. Sophisticated weapons platforms disguised themselves as simple mining equipment. The monitoring station Vigilance, which had revealed itself to Captain Jorak, now appeared to be the primary human military installation in the region. The coalition fleet crossed into human space with all the confidence of a superior civilization dealing with uppity primitives. Admiral Thex stood on his bridge watching the tactical display show scattered human contacts that matched intelligence projections. As expected, he told his staff, a handful of crewed ships trying to defend territory they can't possibly hold. Signal the lead human vessel. I'll give them one chance to surrender before we demonstrate the consequences of challenging the coalition. The response came from Admiral Torres herself, though she identified herself only as the commander of local human defenses. Coalition fleet, you have entered human space without authorization. Withdraw immediately or face defensive action. Admiral Thex actually laughed. Defensive action? From what? Our intelligence shows you have perhaps 20 ships in this entire region. We outnumber you more than 2 to 1, and our technology is generations ahead of yours. Admiral Thex, Torres replied calmly, you should know that intelligence can be very misleading. I'm offering you the same choice we gave Captain Jorak. Withdraw now, or discover why your predecessors decided that peaceful coexistence was preferable to conflict. Captain Jorak was a young fool who allowed himself to be intimidated, Thex responded. I am not. You have 30 seconds to release our personnel and surrender your vessels, or we will take them by force. Admiral Torres nodded to her communications officer, who sent a coded signal throughout human space. Across dozens of star systems, the response was immediate and coordinated. "Admiral Thex," Torres said, "you're about to receive a lesson in the difference between what humanity chooses to show the galaxy and what humanity is actually capable of." Suddenly, the Coalition fleet's sensors began registering contacts that shouldn't have existed. Ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel throughout the system. Not the 20 vessels intelligence had predicted, but over 200 human warships moving in perfect coordination. "Impossible," Admiral Thex's tactical officer exclaimed. "Where did they come from?" "Our sensors showed empty space. The human ships weren't just numerous. They were advanced. Energy readings indicated defensive systems and weaponry that matched or exceeded Coalition standards. Tactical formations suggested military doctrine and training that rivaled the Coalition's best forces. "Sir," his communications officer reported with growing alarm, "I'm detecting additional human ships dropping out of FTL throughout the sector. Current count is 237 vessels and climbing." Admiral Thex stared at the tactical display in growing disbelief. The humans hadn't just hidden a few ships. They had hidden an entire fleet that had somehow remained undetected for decades. "Full sensor sweep," he ordered. "I want to know how they've concealed this many ships." The results were even more disturbing. Coalition sensors were detecting massive industrial complexes, defensive installations, and infrastructure that suggested decades of secret military buildup. The humans hadn't been isolated for 50 years. They had been preparing. Admiral Torres' voice came over the communication system again, still calm but now carrying unmistakable authority. "Admiral Thex, you're now facing the Human Defense Force 3rd Fleet, supported by forward defensive installations and rapid response units. Your 50 ships are outnumbered nearly 5-to-1 by vessels that are, contrary to your intelligence reports, equal or superior to your own." "This is impossible," Admiral Thex muttered. "Our surveillance shows humans as a primitive species with limited capabilities." "Your surveillance showed you exactly what we wanted you to see," Torres replied. "For 50 years, we've been conducting the greatest deception operation in galactic history. While you watched our primitive cargo haulers struggle with basic interstellar commerce, our real fleets were exploring, expanding, and preparing for the day when the Coalition's arrogance would overcome their wisdom." The tactical display updated to show human ships moving into attack formations around the Coalition fleet. Each group moved with precision that indicated advanced tactical doctrine and extensive training. "You have two choices," Admiral Torres continued. "Surrender your fleet for processing and eventual return to Coalition space, or attempt to fight your way out and discover what human weapons technology has accomplished during 50 years of undisturbed development." Admiral Thex's warrior instincts warred with his growing understanding of the tactical situation. Brutarian military doctrine emphasized strength and direct confrontation. But even Brutarian warriors understood the concept of strategic retreat when facing impossible odds. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "additional human contacts are approaching from deeper in their territory. Current enemy strength is approaching 400 vessels, and sir, some of those energy readings don't match anything in our database. Those unknown energy readings were humanity's ace in the hole. While the Coalition had focused on refining existing technologies, human engineers had spent 50 years developing entirely new approaches to space warfare. Weapons that used scientific principles the Coalition hadn't discovered. Defensive systems based on theories their physicists hadn't explored. Manufacturing techniques that allowed rapid ship production without the resource limitations that constrained other civilizations. "Admiral Thex," Torres said, "I'm going to share something with you that your government should have learned 50 years ago. Humans don't respond to overwhelming force by surrendering. We respond by escalating until the cost of victory becomes indistinguishable from defeat. You can withdraw now with your fleet intact, or you can commit to a battle that will teach the galaxy why every previous civilization that challenged humanity learned to regret it." The Coalition admiral found himself facing the same choice that had confronted Captain Jorak, but on a scale that could affect the entire balance of galactic power. His decision would determine whether this remained a border incident or escalated into the first major interstellar war in over a century. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving priority transmissions from Coalition Command. They're ordering us to withdraw immediately, Admiral Thex looked at the message that had just arrived from Admiral Zephrek himself. Disengage immediately. Do not, under any circumstances, initiate hostilities with human forces. New intelligence indicates massive underestimation of human capabilities. Full fleet withdrawal authorized. But Admiral Thex's pride, combined with a lifetime of easy victories against inferior opponents, made him ignore both wisdom and direct orders. No, he said firmly. We don't retreat from primitives. All ships prepare for combat. We're going to show these humans what happens when they challenge the Coalition. Admiral Torres sighed as she received reports of Coalition weapons powering up. The Battle of the Border Zones lasted exactly 14 minutes and 37 seconds. It would go down in galactic history as the shortest decisive naval engagement ever recorded. And the moment when the balance of power in the galaxy shifted permanently. Admiral Thex's order to open fire came at 09:47 hours Coalition Standard Time. His 50 ships, representing the finest military technology of 47 different species, unleashed a coordinated barrage that would have reduced any known defensive installation to glowing debris. The human response was immediate, overwhelming, and unlike anything the Coalition had ever encountered. Instead of the primitive defensive systems Coalition intelligence had predicted, human ships revealed energy shields that absorbed the initial barrage completely. Instead of crude weapons firing simple projectiles, human vessels returned fire with directed energy weapons that sliced through Coalition armor like tissue paper. Impossible, Admiral Thex shouted as his flagship shuddered under impacts from weapons that shouldn't have existed. Their technology can't be this advanced. But it was. 50 years of isolation had allowed human scientists and engineers to pursue research directions that other civilizations had deemed impossible or impractical. While the Coalition had focused on refining existing technologies, humanity had revolutionized them. The Retribution led the human counterattack with weapons that the Coalition had never imagined. Plasma cannons that fired coherent energy beams capable of punching through any known armor. Missile systems that used micro-wormhole technology to bypass defensive screens entirely. Shield generators that didn't just absorb energy, but redirected it back at attackers. Coalition fleet, Admiral Torres broadcast on all frequencies. Cease fire immediately or face complete destruction. This is your final warning. Admiral Thex's response was to order maximum firepower against the nearest human vessels. It was the last order he would ever give. Human ships throughout the battle zone revealed their true capabilities in devastating fashion. The vessels that had appeared to be converted cargo haulers suddenly bristled with weapons that fired with precision and power that exceeded Coalition specifications. The monitoring stations that had seemed primitive revealed themselves to be fortress platforms with defensive systems that made them nearly invulnerable, and then humanity revealed Project Cerberus. Throughout the human fleet, ships began working in perfect coordination to create something the Coalition had never seen. Networked warfare on an unprecedented scale. Instead of individual vessels fighting individual battles, the entire human force functioned as a single organism with shared sensors, coordinated targeting, and mutual defense. Coalition ships found themselves facing not just superior individual vessels, but an integrated battle network that anticipated their moves, countered their tactics, and overwhelmed their defenses through pure coordination. Sir, Admiral Thex's tactical officer called out in desperation. They're not fighting like separate ships. Their entire fleet is operating as one unit. It was true. Human tactical doctrine, developed during 50 years of preparation, emphasized unity of command and integrated systems in ways that other civilizations had never achieved. Every human ship could access the sensor data of every other human ship. Every weapon could be coordinated with every other weapon. Every defensive move was calculated to support fleet-wide tactics rather than individual survival. The Coalition fleet, despite its individual superiority in size and traditional firepower, found itself outmatched by an enemy that fought like a single massive organism rather than a collection of separate vessels. But humanity still had one more. Surprise, Admiral Torres, came a transmission from Luna Base. You are authorized to deploy Project Fenrir. Admiral Torres nodded grimly. Project Fenrir was humanity's ultimate demonstration of what 50 years of secret research could accomplish. While other civilizations had focused on building bigger ships with more powerful weapons, Human scientists had pursued a different path entirely. All ships, clear firing lanes for Fenrir deployment, Torres ordered. From the rear of the human formation, a single ship moved forward. It wasn't impressive to look at, smaller than most human vessels and unremarkable in appearance. But its purpose wasn't to fight in conventional terms. As the ship reached the center of the battle zone, it began broadcasting on frequencies that coalition sensors could barely detect. The transmission wasn't communications. It was something far more sophisticated. Every coalition ship suddenly found its computer systems under attack by what could only be described as digital warfare on an unprecedented scale. Human cyber warfare specialists, operating through quantum-encrypted networks, began systematically infiltrating coalition vessels. "Sir," Admiral Thex's communications officer screamed, "they're in our systems. They're shutting down our weapons, our shields, our engines." It was the culmination of 50 years of studying coalition technology through careful observation and hidden sensors. Human computer specialists knew more about coalition ship systems than most coalition engineers did, and they had developed ways to turn that knowledge into the ultimate weapon. One by one, coalition vessels found themselves powerless as human cyber attacks disabled their critical systems. Ships that had been firing devastating barrages moments before suddenly went silent as their weapons were turned offline by enemies who had infiltrated their control networks. "This is Admiral Torres to all coalition vessels," came the broadcast that ended the battle. "Your ships have been disabled but not destroyed. Your crews are unharmed, but your vessels are under our control. Surrender immediately, or we will demonstrate what complete system control allows us to do." To emphasize the point, several coalition ships suddenly found their own weapons turning toward their neighboring vessels. The message was clear. Humanity didn't just have superior firepower. They had the ability to turn coalition ships into weapons against their own fleet. Admiral Thex, watching his proud fleet reduced to helplessness in less than 15 minutes, finally understood what Admiral Zefrak had been trying to warn the coalition about for 50 years. "We surrender," he said quietly. "All ships stand down. Comply with human demands." The battle was over, but its consequences were just beginning. Within hours, news of the coalition's defeat spread throughout galactic civilization. 50 ships representing the combined might of 47 species had been defeated by a human force that had revealed capabilities no one had suspected existed. On the coalition capital world, emergency sessions convened as leaders tried to understand how their intelligence had been so completely wrong. Admiral Zefrak, no longer dismissed as an overcautious old warrior, found himself tasked with developing new strategies for dealing with what was clearly a major galactic power that had been hiding its true strength for decades. "How did we miscalculate so badly?" Chancellor Korex demanded, his earlier arrogance replaced by barely controlled panic. "We didn't miscalculate," Admiral Zefrak replied calmly. "We were deceived. For 50 years, humans allowed us to see exactly what they wanted us to see, while building the most sophisticated military force in known space." "What do they want?" asked the representative from the Quartzoid Collective. "The same thing they've always wanted," Zefrak answered. "To be left alone. The difference is that now they've demonstrated they have the power to enforce that desire." In human space, Admiral Patricia Kowalski stood in the war room receiving reports of complete victory. Coalition forces had been neutralized without a single human casualty. Their ships were being studied to reveal any technological advances humanity might have missed. Their crews were being interrogated to provide intelligence about coalition capabilities and intentions. "Recommendations for next steps?" she asked her staff. "The coalition will likely attempt to negotiate," Dr. Elena Vasquez reported. "Our intelligence suggests significant political upheaval as various species try to decide how to respond to our revealed capabilities. And if they choose continued aggression?" Admiral Kowalski's expression hardened. "Then we show them why we've kept Ragnarok in reserve. 50 years of preparation wasn't just about defensive capabilities. We've developed weapons that could end this war in a matter of days if necessary." But she hoped it wouldn't come to that. Humanity had achieved its strategic objective, demonstrating that the cost of aggression against human space was unacceptably high. The coalition would have to decide whether their pride was worth the risk of facing humanity's full capabilities. As Admiral Torres supervised the processing of captured coalition vessels, she reflected on the irony of the situation. For 50 years, the galaxy had followed a simple rule: never agitate the humans. The Coalition's decision to ignore that wisdom had revealed exactly why it had been sound policy. Now the galaxy would have to learn to coexist with a human civilization that was no longer hiding its true strength. The age of human isolation was over, and the age of human prominence had begun. The sole command had been violated, and as predicted, the empire that challenged humanity now lay in ruins. But humanity, true to their nature, was already preparing to help rebuild what they had been forced to destroy, because that too was part of human character that the galaxy was only beginning to understand.